everybody, and welcome to VRIC Media, the most trusted voice in junior mining. Our flagship event, the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference, is coming up January 19th and 20th at the Vancouver Convention Center. Tickets are free. Get them by hitting the link in the description below. But for now, of course, we're bringing the VRIC to you with our series of expert online panels. And I am thrilled today because our guest is the co-founder of the Quantum Fund, the creator of the Rogers Commodities Index, and best-selling author of classics such as Investment Biker, A Bull in China, and many others. It's my honor to welcome Jim Rogers to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, I'm delighted to be here, but let me quickly tell you, I make many mistakes.
Well, maybe we'll discuss some of those at some point in the interview today, but I want to start by taking a step back, looking at financial markets today. What are the main themes and trends as we sit here right now that you're watching that you think investors should be paying attention to?
Well, who knows, Jesse, I make many mistakes, but what I am mainly concerned about right now is the fact that the U.S., which is the largest and most important market, has been going up for the longest in American history. We haven't had a serious problem since 2009, to be precise, and it's never happened that long. Now, Jesse, maybe it's going to go on forever. Maybe the politicians in Washington have solved the world's problems. I'm skeptical of that. So what I'm mainly worried about is not if, but when the next bear market is going to come, because I know it's going to be extremely serious. It's been so long since we've had a big bear market, was the main problem. But the second problem is the debt in Washington. It's incomprehensible how staggering it goes. And I'm not even sure anybody in Washington can count that high or even wants to count that high. So I know the next time we have a problem, it has to be the worst in my lifetime. And I'm older than you, so it's going to be the worst in your lifetime too.
I would love to get your thoughts on Trump being elected president and how you think that could change the picture, if at all, because obviously the debt and deficits, entitlement spending is massive, the off-balance sheet debt as well. Now, he's put together this Department of Government Efficiency with Elon Musk, and apparently they're going to go in there and they're going to cut government spending. Is this all smoke and mirrors? Is this anything that can actually have a material impact on the issue?
It is remarkable how well thought out and how voiced it is, how well voiced it is. But I've heard all this before, Unfortunately, I'm old enough to have heard many generations of politicians explain. They appoint special commissions to ensure that it happens. They pass special acts of Congress to guarantee it happens. I mean, yeah, these are smart guys, knowledgeable guys. They understand the world. But so did many other people in American history, in my lifetime, much less before my lifetime. So, okay, yeah, great, wonderful. If we take them at their word, it's going to happen. I'm just skeptical because I've heard it so many times before, and not just in the U.S., but we're talking about the U.S., so mainly in the U.S.
And I would also like to follow up there in regards to Trump. He's been talking quite tough when it comes to tariffs on other nations. He's talking about putting tariffs on Mexico, on Canada. He's talking about 100% tariffs on BRICS nations that are looking to circumvent the US dollar. He says it's not happening on his watch. Aren't these tariffs just going to be hurting the American citizens and making the economic situation in America worse, or am I missing something there?
Well, you're not missing, but throughout history, tariffs have hurt everybody, including the people imposing the tariffs. I don't know any time in history when somebody can say that was a good thing. We saved the world. We saved our country. We saved our industry by doing it. Maybe the world has changed. Maybe it's different now. But you're exactly right. You're very perceptive. It's never worked. It's never helped. It's even hurt the people who impose the tariffs. Now, Mr. Trump thinks that it's going to work. He thinks he knows what he's doing. And maybe he does. Maybe I'm wrong. I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, but I'm skeptical because it's never helped. It's never worked before. It's always led to bigger problems.
Quick break here. This episode is brought to you by West Red Lake Gold Mines. Now, if you know nothing about West Red Lake Gold Mines, let me tell you one thing. This company was founded on the back of a transaction where they purchased the Madsen mine in northwestern Ontario in an area called the Red Lake Gold District, which to date has produced around 30 million ounces of gold from some of the richest gold deposits in the world. Now, what they paid for this mine versus what they got has led legendary mining entrepreneur Frank Giustra to call this transaction the deal of the decade. And Bob Moriarty, founder of 321 Gold, was recently on my show calling West Red Lake Gold Mines one of the two most undervalued gold companies in Canada. If you're curious why these individuals are so excited about West Red Lake Gold Mines, hit the link below to learn more. Now back to the episode.
So taking a look at the geopolitical landscape at the moment, what are you paying attention to right now? Obviously, we have a multitude of global conflicts going on. We have that whole story of the BRICS alliance. You know, Russia had the BRICS summit earlier this year in Kazan, and more member states want to join. There's that whole narrative of East versus West. How do you see that playing out, and what are you paying attention to in particular right now when it comes to geopolitics?
Oh, what I'm mainly worried about is the world economy and the debt skyrocketing everywhere. I mean, even China, in 2008, China bailed us out. They had a lot of money saved up. Even China has a lot of debt now. So I don't know who's going to bail us out this time, Jesse. I mean, North Korea, they don't have any debt, but they don't have any money either. So I don't know who's going to bail us out. The Japanese are spending money like crazy. The Japanese stock market was down for 35 years. That's not a typo. 35 years. Now it's going through the roof because Japan is spending huge amounts of money. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful period in Japan if you happen to own shares or want to own shares. But it's never happened before. Nothing has ever happened quite like this, where everybody is making huge amounts of money and everybody is happy. I guess I've been around too long, but when I see that everybody is happy, I start getting worried because I know when everybody's happy, people are going to be unhappy soon. And to repeat, because the debt is so staggeringly high everywhere now, the next problem has to be a very bad one. And
it's interesting. You go ahead. Yeah.
What I will quickly say that in Washington, they say, don't worry, we're not going to have a next problem. Okay, that's good news. Very, very good news. I've heard that before, too. And I know the world has always had problems every few years. Always. So I'm skeptical. I expect another problem will come. I hope I live long enough to see many problems. I hope we all live long enough to see many problems. But I doubt it.
So one idea that's floated out there in terms of how to solve this whole situation is we have to return to a gold standard. Now that sounds great in theory. I don't see it happening anytime soon. Do you see that as a potential solution? I mean, central banks have been accumulating gold at a very rapid pace recently. Some people point to that and say, oh, they know something that we don't. They're getting ready for a monetary reset. Gold's going to return in some form or another. You know, we do have talk of the BRICS currency, you know, Putin mentioning they're looking at an alternate payment system, potentially backed by gold, potentially backed by commodities as well. Is it possible, you know, in our lifetimes that we could see a return to a gold standard, and would that solve the problem?
Of course, it's possible. It's happened many, many times in history. The problem with the gold standard is it works. And when things get tough, because the gold standard works, politicians give up and change the rules. They say, oh, we didn't mean to hurt this much. We didn't want this much pain. So, yeah, I mean, they may try something like that. They've been tried many times in history. The silver standard. You may remember that the U.S. was founded on a silver monetary system in the 1790s. They changed it 100 years later. Silver has been the basis for money around the world for many times. Jesus Christ was sold for 30 pieces of silver. He wasn't sold for gold because silver was the monetary basis in those days. So something may well happen. It often has. But to repeat, the problem just is it works. And politicians and voters, nobody likes pain and discipline and tough times. And the reason they work is because they lead to discipline in hard times, which nobody wants. I don't want pain. I want happy days every day. So does everybody else.
I want to talk about China for a moment because you mentioned that China has a lot of debt as well. We see a lot of headlines in the mainstream Western press basically announcing that China is going to collapse any day now. They've got demographic issues, they've got debt issues, their government's a dictatorship, et cetera, et cetera. I've heard some people who are on the other end of that argument, people like Simon Hunt, Louis Vincent Gove, who say that actually the Chinese economy and financial markets are much stronger than they're being made out to be. Do you think China presents an opportunity at present? And if so, which areas of the Chinese market do you think look particularly attractive right now?
Well, for rightly or wrongly, China is one of the few markets where I still own shares, mainly because I didn't sell them, and I'm not selling them. If I found something, I would buy more. But there's no question that China has problems. They had a huge real estate bubble, gigantic bubble. They tried to stop it. Eventually it popped. Somebody popped it, and it's causing a lot of pain right now. They also had the virus, a huge virus as well. So they got hit twice. But I haven't sold any Chinese shares, and I would rather buy than sell in China. But if you look back at American history, we had some horrible times, terrible times in our history, where if you were smart, you bought, you didn't sell, because America was on its way to great success. Sure, China's going to have problems, and they're having problems, but I'm not a seller.
Do you think there's any risk of, we saw when Russia got sanctioned, people lost all of their Russian shares. There was that one Russian ETF a lot of people were invested in, and just basically people who were working through Western brokers. Perhaps you can circumvent that by being in Singapore or other parts of the world. But for people who are based in the West, is there a danger in investing in China of potentially, having that similar situation that happened with Russian equities?
Of course, it's happened all over the world, many times in history. Some politician will come along wherever we are and say, oh my gosh, we're having problems now. I have the answer. I have an easy answer, and it's not going to hurt you very badly. It might hurt the foreigners. It might hurt other people, but don't worry. They always come up with easy answers, and easy answers are usually bad for somebody. And so, yeah, of course, China could do that and might do that. Everybody has throughout history. So why not? I'm not advocating it because I'd be one of the people hurt. But I'm just telling you, human beings are human beings. And unfortunately, human beings throughout history want the easy way, including me.
Uzbekistan, this is a part of the world you've discussed being invested in before. Is that an area that you still see opportunity in? And what is it about Uzbekistan that makes it an attractive place to invest, if so?
Well, Uzbekistan is a huge country geographically, first of all. It's right in the middle of Eurasia, so it's good. It could be at a good place. 500, 600 years ago, there was a guy named Tamer. He became known as Tamer the Lame, or Tamerlane, because he went lame. And he conquered a lot of the world, all the way from Europe to Japan. The word kamikaze comes from when they were invading Japan, and a typhoon came and blew the ships away. So they've been a very successful country at times. When he died, he was buried in Uzbekistan, and on his tomb it said, "Here lies Tamerlane. If anybody disturbs this tomb, it will bring great chaos to the world." The Russians took over Uzbekistan, the Soviets, and in 1941, Russian architects were going to go into Tamerlane's tomb to see what was there. The day they had opened Tamerlane's tomb to go in, Hitler invaded Russia. So Tamerlane was right. So be careful. If you go to Uzbekistan, don't go into Tamerlane's tomb. Or if you do, be very careful. Anyway, the country's had great success at times in history. It has lots of natural resources, lots of manufacturing, lots of many things, and a good location. The new crowd, after the Soviets, after the Russians, are trying to change the country, and they would run the country the way you and I would run the country. Let's hope it works. If it works, the shares, it's got a small stock market. If it works, the shares are all going to go higher. It's got a big geographic mass, big population, big neighbors, lots of resources. So who knows? I've made many mistakes, as I told you before. You said we could discuss them, Tom. You want to talk about my first wife? You really want to discuss my mistakes, for God's sakes? I don't think it's worthwhile. Anyway, Uzbekistan, maybe it's one of the two countries where I still own shares.
Very interesting. And within Uzbekistan, within the stock market, which sectors are you looking at, or do you think present the most value there? What types of companies are you looking at there?
Yes, I'm buying everything. It's a very small stock market. It's not as though there are 250 shares. No, very, very few companies yet, because left over from the Soviets, left over from history. They didn't have a lot of private, publicly traded companies. I hope that's in the process of changing. It's supposed to be in the process of changing. If so, buy them all. And one day you and I'll be sitting here 5 years from now, and then we can talk about sectors.
Very interesting. I want to get your thoughts on the German government collapsing, energy prices there soaring, industry seemingly being decimated, at least if you believe the headlines that are out there, particularly the auto manufacturing industry. A lot of companies closing up shop, moving overseas. I wonder what your thoughts are overall on what's happening right now in Germany. What caused it?
What you just described sounds like an opportunity to me. I don't own German shares, but listening to you, I said to myself, what am I doing talking to him? I should be on the phone talking to Germany, finding out what to buy. I don't have any German shares. It sounds like I should be stop being so lazy and learn more about what's happening in Germany. It sounds like an opportunity, but I don't know.
Very interesting. Now, Europe in general, is there anywhere you're looking at in Europe that you think could present any opportunity in terms of investment at the moment?
There is not at the moment. If there is, it's just because I haven't thought of it. I'm too lazy. But there could, well, but most markets around the world, most economies around the world are doing well right now. Many people are having a good time throughout the world. So if there's a place that's in trouble in Europe, I don't know about it. Either I'm too lazy or there's not.
And when looking at the commodities space right now, is there anywhere you're seeing opportunity there? Any commodities in particular that you think stand a good chance as we move forward, even perhaps in the face of this market collapse that you see coming eventually?
Well, that usually means people usually, when they say commodities, they really mean gold and silver. I own both gold and I own silver. I'm not buying either right now. If I were, I would buy silver. See, I own some silver. Here it is, because silver is down 40 or 50% from its all-time high. Gold is making all-time highs. So I would prefer to buy silver than gold. But agriculture is more or less depressed in much of the world. Even oil. Oil is down a lot from its all-time high. I'm not buying oil, but I would start with agriculture if I were going to buy commodities. And I might buy some more silver soon if I get around to it.
And gold and silver miners, do you think there's any opportunity there right now? Because at the moment, particularly when it comes to gold, the mining sector overall has not kept pace with the gains of the metal itself. A lot of people are pointing to that as a potential opportunity. Do you see the same thing?
Well, of course I do. But if you're going to buy miners, you have to know a lot about what you're doing. You've got to know the people, you've got to know the mine, you've got to know the reserves, you've got to know the politics, you've got to know many things. So yes, there are great opportunities if if you get the right mining company. The problem is there are hundreds of them in the world. Uh, I think it was Mark Twain who said the definition of a liar is a hole in the ground with a miner at the top. Because Mark Twain lost a lot of money in a gold mine, apparently, once upon a time. So be careful. But if you know your geology and if you know what you're doing, you can make a staggering amount of money. I mean, you'll make money in silver, yes, but you'll make a lot more money if you find the right silver mine, the right silver mine. And I don't know. I don't own any silver mines.
Great thoughts there. I'm wondering what you think about fixed income at the moment for investors looking for yield right now. We're in a global rate cutting cycle. Do you think emerging market debt is a reasonable place to be? Are there any other areas of the fixed income market that you think look attractive right now?
I don't own any fixed income because I expect inflation to come back and to come back strong, and therefore interest rates will go higher. I'm sure there's some emerging market debt that is attractive right now. I just don't know it. I mean, you look at places like Russia where there's a war. When there's a war, there's usually attractive opportunities. I don't have any. I'm an American, and if we're not we cannot invest in Russia right now. But if you know what you're doing, and if you can look around, places like that may have great opportunities. It usually, but I hasten to tell you again, Jesse, I am not buying any fixed in bonds anywhere because I expect more inflation. And when inflation comes, it's going to hurt everybody.
So are you buying
But
anything?
let me quickly tell you, Washington says there's no more inflation.
Right.
They say don't worry.
They've got it under control over there. Is there anything that you're buying at the moment, or are you mostly sitting in cash, sitting on investments you already own, and waiting for an opportunistic time to come into the market, perhaps after we see a large correction to pick things up at a cheaper price?
I happen to own a lot of cash, and the cash is mainly in US dollars. You may say, why US dollars after what you've said? And it's mainly because when turmoil comes, the world looks for a safe haven. For historic reasons, the world thinks the US dollar is a safe haven. It's not, but I own it because my plan is that when the turmoil comes, the dollar will go higher and I'll be smart enough to sell it, I hope. Now, what you should say now is, where will you put the money? And there's the problem. I don't know. I do not see yet a new competitor to the US dollar. I look every day, but something will replace the dollar eventually, but I don't know what right now. So I have these dollars. I'm going to sell them eventually. Then what? I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're a long ways off from the US dollar losing reserve currency status. I wanted to talk about the concept of having options in regards to places to relocate to physically if things get bad in your home country. I'm sitting in Japan right now, visiting at the moment, but I live in Serbia. But I'm originally from Canada. Things went very poorly, in my opinion, there in regards to politically, economically, taxes through the roof, inflation went crazy. So I got out of there. And I've seen some interviews you've done with Nomad Capitalist regarding this. You live in Singapore, obviously. You've been all over the world. How important is it for people to have a plan B in place in case things go into a bad situation in their home country?
Well, it's extremely important to have a plan B, and a plan B should include everything such as somewhere else to live if you can. People, if possible, should have more than one passport in case. You hope you never need it, but if you need it, you better have it. So yes, people should have a plan B. I don't like saying it. I am American. I'm keen on America. I live in Asia because I wanted my kids to speak Mandarin, and I realized the best way to do that was live where they had to speak Mandarin. But I've done that now. I mean, we've accomplished that. So now we obviously have to think about what's next. So far, I don't have an answer. And we may just stay in Singapore. Singapore is a wonderful place for many, many reasons. So I don't know, but everybody needs to have a plan B. You hope you never need it. You hope you never, ever have to worry about where you live. But if it happens, it's too late. You better have the plan in place because it's too late once you cannot do anything.
And going along those same lines, do you think it's also important to have bank accounts in different jurisdictions? Perhaps for those who are able, real estate in different parts of the world, brokerage accounts, just as a way to diversify one's wealth away from one solitary political jurisdiction?
Well, one should certainly have bank accounts, investment accounts in another country besides your own for the same reason. I mean, if all of a sudden you want to invest in country X, it's probably too late by the time the world realizes, oh my gosh, let's get there fast. You have to have these things in place in advance, and then there's no problem. You can act when you have to act. If you have to suddenly scramble around and try to open a bank account in country X is not interested. In your own country is going to make it difficult for you to take your money elsewhere. So, no, all of these things. Plan B is extremely important for everybody. Everybody has to come up with their own plan B, figure out which countries you know something about, or maybe where you have some heritage or something, but please develop a plan B.
I could not agree more. Let's touch on mistakes now to close things out. You mentioned you made a lot of mistakes. Obviously, you're a legendary investor. Many people perhaps find that hard to believe, but I'm wondering, amongst those mistakes, is there any that stand out in particular as a learning experience for you that helped propel your career forward?
Well, the first big mistake was I had a huge success early in my career, and I thought I was really smart. I thought I was going to be the next Bernard Baruch. I couldn't believe how smart I was. Needless to say, a few months later, I lost everything because what I didn't understand in that particular time, and this applies to everybody, I didn't understand there were lots of people in the market who didn't know as much as I knew. I thought everybody knew what I knew. Well, turns out a lot of people didn't. They bought crazy stocks at crazy prices, and I got wiped out just because I didn't understand the markets. Everything I shorted at that time went bankrupt eventually, but I lost everything first because there were lots of people who didn't know as much about the world as I thought I did. And you have to understand, just because you know a lot doesn't mean everybody else does. And you better understand the markets, and you better understand the market mentality. That's perhaps the most important lesson I learned the hard way, the bad way. But fortunately, I survived. There was nothing I could do except try to start over, which is what I did. It was not easy, but there have been times that I can remember once in 1980, I started shorting oil, which was extremely high. That weekend, Iran and Iraq went to war. And needless to say, the price of oil didn't go down when Iran and Iraq were at war. And now somebody knew, and you could say, oh, what a bad luck. Yeah, bad luck. But somebody knew that war was starting. Somebody knew the troops were moving. Somebody had done enough homework, not me. So I lost a lot of money because the price of oil skyrocketed. I mean, yeah, I have learned over and over again in my life that whenever I make a mistake, it's because I didn't do enough homework. I'd like to blame it on you, Jesse. I'd like to blame it on a lot of people. But unfortunately, I'm the one who didn't do enough homework.
And are you still, but both of those mistakes you mentioned involve shorting. Are you still active in shorting the market? Do you have any short positions at present? Do you think there will come a time where you might short the broad market, for example, coming up here?
I hope I'm smart enough to sell short soon because I can see a lot of exuberance developing in markets. I'm not shorting right now because I don't see wild hysteria yet. I do see exuberance, but I don't see wild hysteria. If and when I see wild hysteria somewhere, I hope I'm smart enough to short it. At the moment, it's just looking at the world, it would probably be in the magic 7, or whatever the number is in the US. There's stocks that go up every day, no matter what. I'm not short any of those, but I would imagine that if and when I sell short, that would be a place to start.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, Jim. Very much appreciate you joining the show. I learned a ton. I'm sure the viewers will as well, and I hope we can have you on again in the future.
Sure, Jesse, but if you come across some hysteria somewhere, please send me an email. Okay. I need some hysteria to short. Not yet, but I want to short it at the right time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Will do, Jim. Thank you so much.
Let's do it again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye
Bye
bye.
now.